The heart monitor screamed before anyone spoke. A flat, merciless sound that cut through the private hospital wing like a blade. Yihyun didn't move. His black Italian suit looked untouched by panic, but his hand was already red, tight around the scalpel he'd taken from the surgical tray. The lead doctor stood frozen, breath shallow, knowing one wrong word would end him. On the bed lay Sung-Han. Silver-gray hair spread across the pillow, skin dull, lips barely moving. The woman who had survived wars, migration, and the rise of an empire was losing a fight no machine could explain. That was when Barbara Smith stepped inside. She wasn't supposed to be there, not as a nurse. She wore teal scrubs, hair pulled into a low, precise bun, a cleaning cart behind her, and a small clay thermos clutched to her chest like a secret. Her eyes locked onto Sung-Hai's face. The color, the breath pattern, the smell. Poison. "This won't show up in your tests," Barbara said, her voice steady despite the guns shifting behind her. "Because it's not medicine that's killing her, it's memory." Yihyun turned, slowly. Cold eyes, measured rage. "You have 5 seconds," he said, "to explain why you're still breathing." Barbara unscrewed the lid of the thermos. Dark steam rose, bitter, ancient. "Because if she doesn't drink this," Barbara said, lifting the bowl, "you won't have a mother by morning." Silence. "If you want to know how we got here. If you want to know whether Sung-Han survives. If you're curious about what happens next inside a mafia empire built on blood and a nurse who heals without permission. Please subscribe so you don't miss the next part. Like to support the story because it helps us create stories like this. And drop a comment below telling me where you're watching from or what you think Yihyun will do next." The room stayed silent long after Barbara lifted the bowl. Machines hummed, guns stayed half-raised. The scalpel trembled in Yihyun's hand, not from fear, but from restraint. He had built an empire on quick decisions and irreversible consequences. Yet here he was, standing between a stranger's certainty and a mother's last breath. Sung-Hai's fingers twitched. It was small, almost nothing, but Barbara saw it. She leaned closer, her shoulder brushing the edge of Yihyun's suit, and gently guided the clay bowl to the older woman's lips. "Slow," Barbara murmured, not to Sung-Hai, but to the room. "She has to choose it." Sung-Hai's eyes fluttered open, clouded, distant, then aware. She looked at Barbara, really looked at her, and nodded once. Yihyun exhaled through his nose. One sharp motion. The scalpel dropped into the tray with a metallic clatter. "Clear the room," he said. No one questioned him. Sung-Hai didn't wake fully that night, but she didn't die either. The monitors steadied. The gray tint retreated from her skin like a tide pulling back from shore. Doctors whispered behind glass walls, baffled and furious, unable to explain why a woman they had already written off refused to cross over. Barbara didn't leave. She sat in a chair beside the bed, hands wrapped around the thermos, eyes open even when exhaustion clawed at her bones. She felt Yihyun's presence before she saw him. He had that effect on rooms, on air. "You knew," he said quietly, standing behind her. "The moment you saw her, what did you notice?" Barbara nodded. "My grandmother taught me what to look for." "And you brought the cure to a hospital," he said, not a question. "I brought it to a woman who was dying." That answer followed Barbara down the hall later, followed her into a private elevator, followed her into a room that wasn't a cell, but wasn't freedom either. Yihyun's men didn't touch her. They didn't have to. By morning, Yihyun knew everything. The debt, the medical bills stacked like dominoes behind Barbara's calm exterior, the loans with interest that multiplied faster than her ER overtime could erase, the house she cleaned at night, the eviction notice folded inside her locker. When he entered the room where Barbara waited, she was standing, chin lifted, hands at her sides. "You bought them," she said. "Yes." "All of them?" "Yes." Barbara swallowed. "Why?" Yihyun studied her the way generals studied maps. "Because people like you don't lie when death is in the room." He placed a folder on the table. Inside were numbers that had once owned her life. Red lines drawn clean through all of them. "You work for me now," he said, "until my mother is healed." Barbara's jaw tightened. "I don't belong to anyone." "No," Yihyun agreed, "but your time does." Their eyes held. Two people used to surviving different kinds of violence. "And if I refuse?" Barbara asked. Yihyun didn't smile. "You won't." The purge began that afternoon. Yihyun stood in the private wing with his hands folded behind his back as his staff assembled. Assistants, guards, nurses he had paid extra to remain silent, women who had been loyal, at least on paper. "You are all dismissed," he said calmly. Confusion rippled through the group. "My mother was poisoned," Yihyun continued, "which means one of you failed or betrayed me." A few protested, one cried, another went pale. "All female personnel are reassigned immediately," he finished. "Anyone who resists will be escorted out." Barbara watched from the doorway as lives rearranged themselves around her. She didn't miss the looks sent her way: fear, resentment, curiosity. That night, she confronted him. "You're isolating her," Barbara said. "Stress will kill her faster than poison." Yihyun's gaze didn't leave the window. "Stress didn't poison her." "Neither did they," Barbara shot back. "You're reacting out of fear." Yihyun turned. For the first time, his voice dropped. "Fear keeps people alive. So does trust." Silence stretched. "You're the only woman who stays," Yihyun said. "That's final." Barbara didn't argue. She didn't have the luxury. The tea had to be brewed fresh every time. That was the rule Barbara laid down, even when Yihyun's men offered laboratories, machines, sterile shortcuts. "Heat, time, intention," she said, setting the small burner on the counter. "If you rush it, it turns from medicine into poison." Yihyun stood beside her, sleeves rolled, watching as if the ritual itself might betray him. "Stir counterclockwise," Barbara instructed. He did. Slower. He adjusted. Steam rose, filling the room with bitterness and something grounding. Earth, roots, history. "Your grandmother," Yihyun said. "She taught you this." Barbara nodded. "She said modern medicine forgets that the body remembers older languages." Yihyun glanced at her hands, scarred, steady. "You don't look like someone who believes in superstition." "I don't," Barbara said softly. "I believe in results." Their shoulders brushed. Neither moved away. For a moment, the world narrowed to the sound of boiling water and breath. Sunghai woke on the third day. Barbara was there when it happened. Yihyun arrived seconds later, breath unsteady despite his discipline. Sunghai's eyes focused slowly. Then she smiled. "You smell like my mother," she told Barbara in Korean. Barbara blinked. I'm sorry." "Roots," Sunghai said, "and courage." She reached out, thin fingers wrapping around Barbara's wrist. "You are my sole daughter." Yihyun froze. Barbara's throat tightened. She bowed instinctively. "I'm honored." Sunghai's grip tightened. "Protect her," she told her son. Yihyun lowered his head. "I will." The promise changed something in him. Barbara felt it like a shift in gravity. The fake nurse arrived 2 nights later. Barbara noticed the shoes first. Wrong brand, wrong wear pattern. Then the badge, slightly tilted, unfamiliar. She stepped forward, blocking the doorway. "Visiting hours are over." The woman smiled too fast. "Emergency consult." Yihyun's men moved, but Yihyun raised a hand. "Only she enters," he said. The fake nurse's smile cracked. Barbara's heart pounded as security seized the woman. A syringe clattered to the floor. Yihyun looked at Barbara afterward, eyes dark. "You saved her again." Barbara exhaled shakily. "This won't stop." "No," Yihyun agreed, "but now I know where to aim." Outside the room, chaos brewed. Inside, Sunghai slept peacefully, alive. And Barbara realized something terrifying. She wasn't just healing a woman. She was standing at the center of a war. If you were standing where Barbara stood, alone between fear, power, and a dying woman, would you have dared to help her? The question lingered in Barbara's mind long after the fake nurse was dragged away, her shoes scraping against the polished hospital floor, her silence louder than any confession. The danger hadn't passed. It had only changed shape. Sunghai slept peacefully that night, her breathing steady, her face softer than it had been in days. Barbara sat beside her, watching the slow rise and fall of the blankets, letting herself believe, just for a moment, that the worst was over. Then she noticed the scarf. It lay folded neatly on the bedside table, silk catching the dim light like water. Pale ivory with hand-embroidered cranes along the edge. Sunghai never slept without it. She wrapped it around her shoulders even in summer, said it kept her warm in ways blankets could not. Barbara reached for it absent-mindedly, intending to drape it back over Sunghai's arm. The smell stopped her. It wasn't strong, it wasn't obvious, but it was wrong. Barbara's grandmother's voice rose in her memory like a warning bell. Poisons that kill kings never announce themselves. They hide in beauty. They wait in touch. Barbara lifted the scarf closer to her face. Beneath the faint scent of expensive perfume was something sharper, metallic, synthetic. Her stomach dropped. "No," she whispered. She didn't hesitate. She sealed the scarf in a sterile bag and marched straight to Yihyun. He was on the phone when she entered, barking orders in Korean, his voice sharp enough to cut glass. He stopped mid-sentence when he saw her expression. "Get everyone out," she said. "Now." The room emptied in seconds. Barbara placed the bag on the table between them. "This is it." Yihyun stared at the scarf. "That was my gift to her." "I know," Barbara said softly. "That's why it worked. Contact toxin, slow release. Every time she touched it, it reinforced the poison." The room felt smaller. Yihyun's jaw tightened, the muscle ticking beneath his skin. "Who?" "Someone close," Barbara replied. "Someone who knew she'd never give it up." Yihyun closed his eyes. When he opened them again, something inside him had gone cold and precise. "Prepare the car," he said into his phone. "We're leaving." The underground market didn't exist on any map. It lived beneath the city, threaded through abandoned subway tunnels and forgotten basements, where generators hummed and shadows paid rent. Yihyun's presence parted the crowd like a blade through silk. People bowed. People pretended not to see. Barbara stayed close to him, her scrubs hidden beneath a dark coat, her heart hammering as unfamiliar faces studied her with open curiosity. "This place traffics in cures as much as weapons," Yihyun told her quietly. "Everything has a price." They found the herbs in a stall run by an old woman with eyes like polished stone. She examined Barbara's list, then looked up sharply. "Snakeroot hybrid," she said. "You won't find this twice." Yihyun slid a black card across the counter. The woman laughed. "That buys silence, not loyalty." Barbara stepped forward. "It saves a life." The old woman studied her, then nodded once. "Then take it and burn the scarf." They left before questions could follow. The attack came at dawn. The Han estate woke to alarms screaming through marble halls. Windows shattered. Gunfire echoed like thunder. Yihyun shoved Barbara and Sunghai into the panic room, sealing the reinforced door with a palm scan. "Stay here," he ordered. Barbara shook her head. "The tea." "I'll handle it," he said. "You don't know how," Barbara snapped. "And if the dose is late, she dies." Explosions rocked the walls. Yihyun met her gaze. For a heartbeat, the mob boss vanished. A son remained. "Then don't be late," he said, and opened the door. Barbara ran. She moved through smoke and chaos, clutching the herbs to her chest, her mind locked onto the steps. Measure, heat, time, intention. In the foyer, Yihyun fought like something born of shadow and steel, his movements lethal, efficient. The lead assassin, a woman with eyes as empty as her gun, smiled when she saw Barbara. "She chose wrong," the assassin said. Yihyun didn't answer. His blade flashed. Barbara didn't look back. She brewed the tea as gunfire shook the walls, her hands steady despite the screams. When she reached Sunghai, the older woman's eyes opened. "You came back," Sunghai whispered. "I promised," Barbara said, lifting the bowl. The final dose was thicker, darker, dangerous. Sunghai drank. Outside, the gunfire stopped. The sun rose over a quiet estate. Bodies were removed, walls repaired, silence returned. Sunghai slept deeply, peacefully for the first time in weeks. Yihyun stood beside Barbara on the balcony, watching the city wake. "It's over," he said. "No," Barbara replied gently. "It's finished." Weeks later, the Handsmith Foundation opened its doors. Glass and light replaced shadows. Doctors worked alongside herbalists. Trauma wards stood beside research labs. Yihyun signed his name for the last time on a document that dissolved his criminal empire into legitimate holdings. Barbara watched from across the room. He approached her, no suit this time, just a man. "You gave me my mother," he said, "and my way out." Barbara smiled. "You chose it." Sunghai joined them, wrapped in a simple shawl, no scarf. "My sole daughter," she said, taking Barbara's hands. "You did not just save me, you healed him." Barbara looked at Yihyun. He bowed his head. Outside, the city moved on. Unaware of how close it had come to losing something ancient and irreplaceable. And somewhere deep in the foundation, a small clay bowl sat on display, not as a relic of superstition, but as proof that healing sometimes comes from courage, not permission. So tell me, if you were in Barbara's place, would you have helped the old woman? Even if it meant stepping into the darkest room of your life. If this story moved you. If Barbara's courage stayed with you. And if you want more powerful stories like this, please like the video, share it with someone who loves deep storytelling, and subscribe to the channel. It truly helps us keep bringing you stories filled with heart, danger, and meaning. And drop a comment below. Tell us what you would have done if you were in Barbara's place.